Donald Trump has pledged a bliss of presidential actions to end American decline, telling a fire-up Inauguration Eve rally that he will crack down on woke ideology and immigration. In a raucous campaign-style gathering in Washington, Trump promised cheering supporters that he will act with historic speed from day one of his White House comeback. He also promised lots of executive orders from his first day back in the Oval Office, including one to ban transgender insanity and critical race theory from schools, and to keep trans athletes out of women's sports. Trump's hopes for a huge crowd to see his inauguration at the U.S. Capitol has been marred by forecasts of below freezing weather, prompting organizers to move the ceremony indoors. Instead of being sworn in on the steps of the Capitol, Trump will now take the oath under the massive dome of his rotunda, last used for the ceremony 40 years ago during the inauguration of President Ronald Reagan.
Most beautiful of all, this week we achieved an epic ceasefire agreement as a first step toward lasting peace in the Middle East. And this agreement could only have happened as a result of our historic victory in November. That was some victory. Was that great? I don't even know which was greater, 2016 or this one. I think this one. The border security measures I will outline in my inaugural address tomorrow will be the most aggressive, sweeping effort to restore our borders the world has ever seen. I will end the war in Ukraine, I will stop the chaos in the Middle East, and I will prevent World War III from happening, and you have no idea how close we are.
Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Adefemi, good morning. Well, today is D-Day in Washington, D.C. I hope the weather is tolerable.
That is the word. That is the word. Tolerable. Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Ayo. And good morning, Rufai. So good to have the trifecta back. Hope you're all doing well.
Yeah.
So yes, we are live in Washington,
man.
D.C. We are stood just in front. That's me. We're stood just in front of the Capitol, and as you can see, it's still very, very early in the morning. It's just after 2 a.m. Temperatures have dropped to about -4, -5 degrees, so as you can imagine, it is very cold. It is very tutu outside right now. But even if the 47th President of the United States wants to move his inauguration inside, running from the cold, we're not running from the cold. We are here to give you the updates as and when they come when it comes to this inauguration ceremony. Just to give you the details, the inauguration ceremony will start at noon local DC time. That's 5 p.m. GMT and 6 p.m. Nigeria time. Please do stay with the Rise News because we will be taking you through the entirety of the ceremony and thereafter. Now, coming towards Donald Trump himself, he has had quite a stacked calendar coming up into this moment. He spoke at the Capital One Arena at a pre-inaugural celebration and talked about the coming of this new presidency, this new administration. He talked about the executive orders he's going to be signing, alleged to be more than 100 that will be signed in the very early moments of his presidency once he is sworn in. And also that includes the TikTok ban, issues when it comes to the Middle East, this ceasefire that has just started and it seemingly started successfully. And then also the likes of his trip to Los Angeles this week in the aftermath of those wildfires. So he's made it very clear that when it comes to the business of being president, he's got a stacked calendar beforehand and thereafter. Now, what we also know is that many officials are somewhat scrambling to make sure that everything is prepared ahead of the ceremony because it will now be taking place inside the Capitol Rotunda. But as you can see behind me, there are lots of barricades that have already been put up. It's still very early in the morning, so we don't have any crowds yet, but you do have people doing the work of securing the premises. When we were here for the election, we could walk across the greens and up the Capitol steps. So that's not the case this time because of the situation that we're seeing here. So as I said, there is still a lot of people doing their work, but I want to show you the other side of the street here. We are on North Capitol Avenue. And if you can see over this side of the street, there is a huge convoy of Secret Service, you can imagine security, press, and also ambulances, all of them with their coordinating convoy lights, just to show that in the very, very near future, we will see a complete closure of this area. But it is great that because we have the advantage of time and the time difference being into Nigeria, we can just see what this preparation is going to be looking at. So again, when it comes to his inaugural speech, it will be very interesting to hear what he's got to say. But we do know that when it comes to the coming of this second Trump presidency, it does come with a little uncertainty for what this means for other countries around the world. This is the person who's built his entire presidency, past and present, future, on America first. So what would that mean with America's position in this world? We do know that the United States, Trump himself will be very happy that he is the president who has come into power when this historic ceasefire in the Middle East has come into effect. And then there's also the issue, of course, of national things like TikTok, the fact that 170 million people in the United States were shut off from using the app on Sunday after the Supreme Court upheld the decision to keep this ban in place. Now, through some assurances from Donald Trump, TikTok has now been switched on to millions of US users, many of whom are very happy. Now, talking about TikTok and the inauguration, we do know that the CEO of TikTok will be attending the inauguration ceremony. And we do know also that they have credited TikTok, that is, have credited Donald Trump with the re-emergence of TikTok being accessible to US users. Now, what's very interesting here is that Donald Trump was staunchly against TikTok. If you remember, he definitely was the person who was involved in the running of this ban in the very early days. So it's very interesting to see that how over the course of this past 4 years, how his tune has really changed, especially most recently. And that's because of the popularity of the app with US users and the fact that he was able to leverage the popularity of this app throughout his own campaigns, his own supporters and the like. So it will be interesting to see what effect his presidency will have on the fact that this law is already in the process of coming into effect, whether or not he'll be able to extend this temporary pause into a full out being able to use TikTok without any ramifications. But we will be keeping our eyes on that. And then finally, moving on from the inauguration and of course TikTok, there's this ceasefire, which is historic. It's come into effect now. It did face a few stumbling blocks on Sunday because Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that he wasn't going to adhere to the ceasefire until Hamas released the names of the hostages who were going to be freed. And there was a little back and forth over the course of some hours before the names were released. And of course, the ceasefire went ahead. And we have seen quite historic images of 3 Israeli captives being released back into their families, sisters being reunited with their mother after 15 months of war. So very, very emotional images we are seeing there. In addition to those images, we also know that some 90 Palestinian prisoners have also reportedly been released by Israel. So the very early steps of this ceasefire do seem to be going ahead as planned, and it is very, very fragile at this moment because, as we know, the ceasefire is broken down into 3 stages and we can't get to stage 2 or 3 without the successful implementation of stage 1. But so far, tentatively, so good. Love to hear your thoughts.
I mean, Femi, great one. I can see it's very, very cold there. That's why since the time of Reagan, we've never had something this way, getting in and doing it inside rather than outside. It's also something that I don't know how Trump will take it because Trump is always someone that was talking about his crowd. You remember in 2016 when he was inaugurated, the contention about his crowd, comparing his crowd to the Obama crowd, and Kellyanne
Yes.
Conway then famously came up with the word,
Alternative facts.
alternative fact, if you remember. So he has this great affection for his crowd. But will his era bring in that same oomph, Reagan era brought in for America, which, this is why I disagree with the Republicans, will always make the rich richer and they think that it will trickle down to the poor. That's why I'm a supporter of the Democrats, and I'll say it outwardly. Because in terms of economic policy, I don't believe in trickle-down economics. I don't believe it's when the rich get richer, they will be able to empower the poor. I believe when the rich get richer, they keep their money in tax havens all over the world, like Hilversum in Holland and a couple of other places like that. And they have murky tax deals. So that's what I believe. And that's why the Democrats have always done a lot for the middle class. That will probably be the slant of a lot of, the Trump policy I see that will happen. cut taxes for the big guys out there, expect it to trickle down. Doesn't always happen that way. So, but I wish him well. And he's going to have a very big American first policy because he's always said American first. It's going to be protectionist in nature, very nationalist in nature. Concerning TikTok, I salute him for that because common sense did prevail. Because the contention about TikTok is it's not just a Chinese company. You have 170 million Americans on TikTok, which I can infer by saying that's over 170 million small businesses in America. Because all these social media sites also make money for people. There's some people that their lives are totally dependent on it. Yes. For some, it's a distraction. You saw Coco Golf yesterday talking about the fact that it was a veritable distraction in this very murky world we live in. So I'm happy I'm happy common sense this prevail. But the big question is that who will buy it? Trump at some point has suggested that America should take about 50% equity in the business. Some people have said the businesses might go up to about $50 billion to be able to get a buyer for it. But whatever is going to happen, you know, what Trump has done is very commendable as regards TikTok. So let's see it happen when he finally gets sworn in at about 6 p.m. Nigerian time, because the Constitution of America says the 20th of January, at the strike of 12 midday, Trump officially becomes president, or a new American president officially takes over the mantle of office out there. So I don't know, Femi, if we're going to see that famous presidential walk at the Pennsylvania Avenue. You know, I don't know, maybe because of the cold weather, he's just going to be sworn in the rotunda.
All right, in 9 hours, approximately, we're going to have the 47th President of the United States of America in the person of Donald Trump take his oath and become president, and there will be that, handover of baton from the Biden administration to the Trump administration, but also from a Democratic administration to a Republican administration, and a lot of things already in the offing for the first day. President Donald Trump has been very vocal about some of the things he plans to do on day one. He's hitting the ground running. He said he has a slew of executive orders to sign on day one, including policies around immigration, which for a number of people in this part of the world are quite concerned about. And of course, the minority ethnic group in the United States, Mexico policy is bringing it back, eroding the citizenship by birth policy. He's saying he's going to try to do that, even though there might be some, legal bottlenecks there. He's also saying that he's going to try to bring back that policy that enables a raid in churches and schools, which is a big deal because a lot of people, especially find community in these spaces and are able to hide. So that's a big deal there. On climate change, he said he's going to, there's going to be pulling out of the Paris Agreement. He's going to undo Biden's climate policies. On TikTok, yes, you were very right, Adefemi, and that's why I'm a bit skeptical, if I can use that word, on his motive for saying he wants to at least, prolong the time when TikTok will be banned in America. I say this because, like you mentioned, he was the one who moved for TikTok being banned in the first place, and Biden just followed suit. And beyond that is that the Supreme Court has ruled, so I wonder how he's going to maneuver, around that. Then also, it's a populist move, in my opinion. I think he's just done it. He's gained the favor of 170 million Americans, which make up about half of the population in the United States of America. That's a huge chunk. So just to see how it's going to be an interesting few days. Well, I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about tomorrow after the inauguration, and we evaluate the things that happen. Hopefully there won't be too many eventualities today. But all the best to him.
Okay, very quickly, D-Day, as I said, the 45th American president returning as the 47th president. And over the weekend, he has staged something of, a welcome party for himself, planting the flag, saying, well, Trump is back. And he made it very clear that he's not here to sell ice cream. He's not here to make people happy. He's returning to get results for the American people. So he had a party in Sterling, Virginia on Saturday. On the same day, Saturday, he moved into Blair House. On Sunday, he had this rally, which was attended and which you refer to. Today, it will be inaugurated. Ironically, in the same center of the Capitol, the Sandstone Hill spot within the Capitol, where his supporters on January 6, 2021 tried to upturn an election result. And he will be there today, staging an improbable comeback. Nobody gave him a chance, but he won with a landslide. people will be interested in what he's going to say. And he's saying that he will not leave straight from the Capitol to the White House. He will start signing executive orders right on the spot. Work will start. And what are those two issues? TikTok. With TikTok, however, the window, the legal room that he has is that he can extend by 90 days for a deal to be worked out. And already you have Project Liberty and Frank McCourt on the sidelines. You have Perplexity AI saying that on Saturday you could buy into TikTok, and have TikTok USA. Now, the executive order that he will give cannot upturn the law that was passed by, the Senate. Otherwise, there will be legal issues. But of course, within 90 days, TikTok, which shut down on Saturday and came back later in the day, still has some room for further negotiations. Other issues that we expect today that he says he will act on immediately is about tariffs. 10 to 25% tariffs on all imports into the United States. Already, Keir Starmer is saying, well, he's going to work out a deal for Britain with President Biden. And you are right. Trump 2.0 is affecting markets. It's likely to have serious implications for the global order. As for the ceasefire that took effect between Israel and Hamas.
It appears that might have lost audio connection, so I can't hear the studio. But I will give you a few seconds to wrap up your comments if you haven't already before I go on to the newspapers, just because I cannot hear what's happening in the studio just yet.
Okay, I was just talking about the ceasefire. It's a welcome development after about 457 days. And these ladies who were, taken in as hostages, have been released now, 3 of them. And then 90 prisoners have been released. The important thing is for that ceasefire agreement, that deal, as they call it, to survive from the first phase to the second phase, and for both parties that have said they welcome it to respect the terms of the agreement, particularly in terms of the implications for peace and stability in the Middle East. Did we lose connection with her?
All right, do we still have Adefemi with us?
Hello, Adefemi, are you
to sign more than 100 executive orders within hours of his presidency coming into fruition. And this is something that we've already discussed about how many countries, not just Europe, but many countries, not just in Europe, but different regions in the world are going to be eagerly anticipating what this second iteration of an America First will look like, what role they will play in this new president's leadership. So it will be very interesting times ahead. And that is picked up on the front page of This Day. And also we have the New Telegraph, which is looking at the transmission company of Nigeria, TCN. Its comments on Sunday said that over 18 transmission towers were vandalized between the 9th and 14th of January. That is happening across Rivers, Abia and Kano states. And this is just another example about how vandalism is destabilizing Nigeria's power infrastructure to the deterrent. There's also a story picked up on the front page of This Day this morning. And among the range of stories on the Guardian's front page is Africa's economy being at a crossroads as Trump's second coming stokes uncertainty, since Trump's America First doctrine is likely again to dominate his agenda. Now, the continent, Africa, must prepare for potential shocks to trade policies, currency stabilities and foreign investment. So again, very interesting times ahead for Africa, looking at what this presidency will mean. The Tribune stays with tax reform, however. Both Knox and Kudos are trailing the acceptance of the proposal. And finally, looking at our Nigerian papers today, the Vanguard leads with the manufacturing sector cutting back on bank loans because of high interest rates. Credit going to the sector has hit its first decline in years. Just to underscore the expense when it comes to credit, it is far more expensive to borrow. We have seen the manufacturing sector take a move to recognize that increase in cost. Those are our Nigerian papers. As ever, we are going to be in Washington, D.C. throughout the course of the day, definitely looking ahead to the inauguration of the 47th President of the United States, Donald Trump, and we'll be taking you through it all.
Well, thank you very much, Adefemi, for your report. We look forward to just going through your eyes and, of course, through your reportage. Today's inauguration, we expect it to be as colorful, exciting and monumental as previous editions have been. Thank you so much for bringing us today's World Report and also review of newspapers from around the world.